who was surprised how anxious and cringe, how uncomfortable she felt about it.
Interesting to notice.
Sorry?
Interesting to notice.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, hopefully you've pressed play and you're watching the live chat, but if you are kind of waiting alongside that, if you can just pop yourself on mute, Q&A is not going to start for another 45 minutes.
Yeah, like I say, and I get mostly still in COVID.
I can't. Can you guys hear me? You can? Okay, I can't hear you guys. Okay. You're all on mute. Okay, that's fine.
Hello.
Okay, great. I can hear you. Okay, cool.
Hi everyone, so I know that you're still watching and I think we've got, sorry, I'm just gonna turn this down a little bit, but I think we've got maybe about 4 minutes left on the video, but like I said, we're so excited that Imara is here with us, and so if you do have any questions for her, please do start popping those into the chat. They're just listening to, if they're running it at the same time as I am, Imara, the kind of last wind down and replaying why you don't particularly like being called an activist. So I'm hoping that kind of that will lead in, but some of the comments that we've had so far, a lot of amens as an ally, this is so important to hear. I totally agree. Really great conversation. Yes, it's 2020. It's time to move this forward. So hopefully we should have everyone moving from where they're watching, coming into the Zoom in a few couple of minutes to get started for the Q&A.
Okay, great.
Hi, Imara.
Hi.
So I think that right now I'm doing the this is where you should find everyone. Hopefully, those of you that are here in the chat with us, you should be able to see on your summit screen the section that says files, and you'll find that there is a page for every speaker with all of their links. So like we said, a lot of people were asking before, how do we find a podcast? and we said it's Translash. Make sure that you check that out. There's a whole website for it. Imara's website is getting brand spanking new updo, so please make sure that you do check out there as well. It's really exciting. I see that Jen is bringing up some questions from the Q&A, but Imara, I've got a comment and a question for you. So it says, hi Imara, it's from Rachel. I have had 2 straight friends approach me because their children have come out as trans. One is 12, one is 18. I am an ally. I try to talk to them about what they are feeling and what their children must be feeling. Do you have any specific resources for parents who are open but need education to better understand their children when they come out as trans?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can answer that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, you're going to answer it now?
If you wouldn't mind.
Oh, yeah. So
yeah, because Rachel's just asked that. Yeah.
Yeah, if they're in the States, they should try PFLAG. The other one is that the Human Rights Campaign has a trans equality parenting council. And so I would just check out there and check out their resources. Another really good person for them to follow on social media, and they can get in touch with her, is Debbie Jackson. Her daughter, Avery, is the trans child who was on the cover of National Geographic for their trans issue. Maybe it was 2 or 3 years ago. So I think those are all 3 that spring to mind for me. Yeah.
Someone just put, Avery Jackson was one of my campers at Gender Spectrum, such a cool kid. Somebody else has said, make sure you also check out Gender Cool, that you are sharing about HRC's Trans Equality Parenting Council as a resource. Okay, so I'm going back. Oops, okay, there you go. I knew they were going to start going really quickly. Okay, so I've got another. Where did this question just go?
Oh, wait, so they can see and hear me.
Yeah,
right?
so we can see you. We can see you. And alongside in the chat, everyone is getting very, very busy. Okay, so where did this just go? Okay, so another question, or one of the questions that we're asking, I'm hoping, because everyone's turning on their cameras now, so hopefully maybe you should be able to, Imara, should be able to start seeing people. Ryan says, yes, we can see you, and so glad to have you, Imara. So we were asking in our pre-questions to people, okay, so how inclusive is your organization? I know that my very wonderful co-ambassador, Jen Brown, Jen,
Hello.
you're here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, they are. So I know Jen is going to pick up like some of the questions that we asked everyone ahead of time, and then we'll just kind of have an open discussion. I know a lot of you are here and you're watching. Please do just raise your hand. I think we have that option if you want to come in and ask your question in real time and turn off your mic and hear us. So I guess Jen, kind of lay the scene of what are some of the things that we were asking people.
Yeah, thank you, Chloe. And thanks, Imara, for being here. And so happy to be having this conversation. So in the poll, we wanted to know from all of you, how inclusive is your organization for the trans community? We were curious about your plans for Trans Awareness Week this year, November 13th to 19th. And those were just 2 to start with. So we were hoping to hear kind of from this group some best practices that we could react to and also to leverage, because we shouldn't feel that we are reinventing the wheel. However, in many cases, we are inventing the wheel for a lot of us whose organizations don't do this well or at all, which according to the polling data we collected from some of you so far is the case. Please let us know what you're planning and how, what your strategy is for trans inclusion. So if anybody would like to weigh in and chat on that, and maybe Imara, while we're doing this, where would you recommend companies who are not started on this start? What would you say is a good place to generate awareness, education, to bring this topic to in a business environment as a priority, and especially leading up to Trans Awareness Week? Is there this window of opportunity that we can really capitalize on? That's what I'm most mindful of, because I think that's a great opportunity that's pretty much right in front of us.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think that, there are always lots of windows of opportunity. So I think that you shouldn't be overwhelmed if you don't have the capacity to put something together in the next month. But I think that you can start out from things like bringing in speakers, but I really do believe that when businesses want to make transformations, they know how to do that. And that essentially means all of the tools that you would normally do if you were to approach any other business problem, excuse me, or any workforce development problem. So you probably should audit your workplace. You probably should figure out how many trans employees you have. If you don't have any, you should probably look at the way in which you recruit and train. What is your workplace environment like with respect to gender sensitivity training? Where are you promoting trans people if you do have them? What are the ways in which you service your trans customers or your partners may be involved with trans people and trans communities? What about your corporate giving? Do you give to institutions and organizations that service the trans community? So it's just about doing an entire audit like you would do anything else through a trans lens and through a trans equity lens, and then begin to build a plan to plug any of the gaps and to reach any of the goals that you may have around that. I mean, I think that's the holistic approach. But over the next month, you clearly can bring in trans speakers. You clearly can begin to look at making charitable donations to trans organizations and matching and letting your employees know that that's something that you're doing and that they should match as well. If you have a matching program, you can promote trans organizations internally, if there's trans programming or there are trans resources that allow people to be able to research or view their own, like Translash. You know, there are lots of different things that you can do in the next 3 or 4 months that are kind of low-hanging fruit, but I think more fulsomely, you know, it is about approaching the transition on trans and trans issues like you would any other business issue.
Thanks, Imara. You know, the event-driven strategy versus the more holistic or fulsome strategy you're talking about is so important for all aspects of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But at the same time being opportunistic, if I can use that word, around what's right ahead of us to, you know, create a bigger splash, more focus. Also can help us start efforts, but let's not mistake effort events for strategic progress, I think is the point that you're making.
Right, and then I think that there are a lot of different places where, you know, I've spoken to, and I can assure you it's a broad range companies that that I would have never thought of until they asked. And as you say, those can be the beginning of transformational conversations that lead to and are a part of building momentum for these larger things and issues.
Absolutely. You know, I'm just kind of pulling up the chat as you're mentioning alongside. So Ryan says at Intercept, it'll be our first time celebrating Trans Awareness Week. I would love suggestions that others have used and are willing to share. I'm writing a blog post on being the sibling of a transgender sister who's also in the biotech pharma space, because I believe vulnerability is always a great door opener for sharing awareness and getting people to think and be involved. Jay Sloan says, answering for Lockheed Martin, we've created a transgender council with 9 committees of volunteers that work within the umbrella of our Pride BRG, but also exist with direct access to corporate GDI and executives. We are planning a video chat that will be accessible to all 100,000 plus employees. It's a conversation that will air in TDOR featuring a Black trans male.
Wow.
So,
yeah,
great to see some intentional work being done.
Yeah, and you know, you could do a thing every day of that week, right? You can plan some type of event, some type of media sharing. You know, you could even do things like, now everyone is remote. You could do a watch party with your employees of the film Disclosure, and then have a conversation about it, or any other types of media. I mean, there are all these different things that you can do and engage over the course of the week. So I think the Lockheed Martin strategy is really innovative, and I think it's other people should think about what works best for their companies, and also think about the ways in which, particularly if you have a global company, there are lots of different touch points for trans issues. For example, if you're in India, or if you have operations in Brazil, there are lots of different touch points around the world. South Africa has a trans community which is visible and active. So I think that there are lots of different ways to think about it, particularly if you're global, to do lots of events and ways to engage your employees, your customers, your audiences during that week.
Absolutely. Dana, I met Dana on my first summit 2 years ago. Hi, nice to see you, Dana. So Dana says PepsiCo has recently created a gender diversity task force. We have already held events for TDAV and TDOR with sharing stories and education. I think Jen, we're going to go a bit kamikaze because I can see lots of people. I can see some amazing people. So like I can see Marie, you've got your flags in the background. I see my bi flag and I see your trans flag. You know, it's great to see so many of you here. If anyone has a question that they want to ask or something that they want to say, I mean, we can see you, so I really would like to hear you alongside, you know, the questions that we've already pulled out. Jen, is there any more that kind of people have been saying on our polls?
Let's see. Yeah, I wanted to plant a couple more seeds. So we also wanted to know, do you have Black trans people working in your organization? If you don't, what stops them from joining? So we need to sort of put our organizational hat on and think about, you know, what are the barriers? And, but we wanted to know, as members of the trans community, what barriers do you face within the workplace? And as advocates alongside the trans community for our allies, what barriers do you think exist to better representation? So those are just to throw a bunch of those out so you can be thinking about those in chat. And Chloe, I love your idea. I'd love people to come off mute and ask Imara questions directly. And also I wanted to ask Dana, so PepsiCo, Lockheed Martin, and Intercept, would you all be willing to be contacted to learn from and leverage what you're creating in your companies? I think one of the values of this conference is that we can compare what might work for us when we're earlier in our journey against some companies who have more infrastructure and more maturity. And so I just wondered in chat if any of you would be open to that, and if you'd share your contact info, and no pressure.
Ryan says yes. Dana said yes. I think I see some really great thumbs ups. I'm also, if you watch the video, you know, I'm full for promotion. So please make sure that you're also contacting Imara's team, you know, other trans voices that are also here at Summit. We aren't speaking on their behalf, so please do get them engaged, get them to come in, you know, make sure you're paying them their speaker's fees. But I can see people putting their details in the chat, so that's amazing. We also had, I saw a hand. Bob, would you like to ask your question live? You just want to unmute yourself and ask away.
Hi, thank you for this resource. I really appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Wonderful,
thank you. So I joined this because I need to be more informed of, you know, the trans world. And I'm the ally co-chair of our Pride Network. And I just haven't been exposed to a lot of things in trans world. And so I came here hoping, and unfortunately I had some freezing of my computer with the video, but live is great. I'm looking for some fundamental resources, you know, the trans for dummies. You know, is there a good resource for folks like me who need to educate themselves better and represent folks and the need to educate our folks in our company? I want to have an opportunity to kind of spread knowledge, and I think Trans Week would be a great place to start.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that there's actually so many resources. I will try to list some. One of the things that I do through the first kind of 4 documentaries of Translash is you can sort of watch what it's like to be trans right now with all these different touch points of learning about, there's one that we do on trans healthcare, and there's one on the history of trans, there's one that we have on family, there's one that we have on the future. So that's a really, I mean, if you want to have a personal experience, I think that that's one for the type of thing that you're talking about. I think if you're talking about institutional resources, I would go to the Transgender Law Center. They are a good place to learn about trans issues. There's some 101 trans stuff at the National Center for Trans Equality, where they have good stuff on trans and Trans 101. The Trevor Project as well. Glisten. I mean, almost any LGBTQ site will have, any organization will have a trans vertical where you can just get some very basics. I also think that there's some really good autobiographies. Like Janet Mock's is a really good one and a really compelling one. Again, through a personal story and a personal narrative. I think that I would encourage you to watch Disclosure. I would encourage you to watch Pose. I think the good news is that, you know, I've mentioned short documentaries, organizational websites, entertainment shows, books, a movie documentary that's on Netflix. I mean, there's lots and lots of information, and there's gotta be even more created. So I think that's where I would start. I would ask kind of a second question is, well, what do you want to know? It's not what should you know, right? It's what do you want to know? And so I would start from what do you want to know, and then figure out the best ways and resources to match with that. Because I mean, I have literally just scratched the surface on the resources and the books that are available and the people that are available. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. And it's great to know that so much resource exists. So excuse my ignorance, but I will learn. Thank you.
Yeah, there are lots. I would also, you know, if you want to just keep up on trans stuff, you can actually follow Translash on Facebook. But in addition, Them is a good resource as well. And so is Pink News in the UK, LGBTQ Nation. You can set up, online digital magazine. You can set up Google alerts on trans issues so that anytime anything with the word transgender comes up, it comes to your own email box or feed. That's another way to keep up. I mean, there's a lot. If you want to read about health standards, I would go to Cal and Lord website, which is actually really good, or the World Professional Association Transgender Health, WPATH. As I said, I could spend the next 20 minutes naming people and resources. I really could.
Amazing. Hopefully some of those will get put into the chat, so please do check that out. I was going to say that you would have all heard Stephen Howe speak a little bit earlier on during the Disney session, talking about, you know, the work that he's doing and why bringing Pose to FX has been so monumental. So please, you know, you've got that resource available. Please go back and revisit that conversation as well that happened a couple of days ago. Kate put in the session, you know, can O&E kind of make a starter kit? Make sure that you check out the Global Hub. I think some of that work has already started to be done, so please do check that out on Summit, of having kind of these resources of where you can kind of go to start. But I think Jason, Jay Sloan, you put your hand up, so I think, do you have a question you would like to ask or a point you'd like to raise?
I was just going to give the simple answer in reference to if anybody has like a starting point, that we do have Trans 101 training, a transition guideline document, gender spectrum training, multiple trainings that we've created throughout the years that we are currently working with our internal public information release forms to scrub of anything that's Lockheed Martin proprietary, so that we can make those available publicly as an example of where we have started. But all of them were really things that we created many years ago and have iterated upon and taken HRC and Out and Equals guidelines and kind of tried to apply. But we'll be working on that, getting that publicly ready.
Great, thank you so much for that. definitely one to look out for. Jen.
Yeah, Chloe, there's a question from, hi, Jen Henderson. So good to see you.
Hi there.
Would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
Sure. So I'm a board member for Out and Equal. I'm also an executive at PNC Bank. We have, during the upheaval that we're having in the United States around equal justice, have said we were going to put a billion with a B towards minority areas, helping small businesses, helping a lot of different people. And my question for you is, with all the concentration that many companies currently have on Black Lives Matter, how do we keep trans people who fall under that umbrella as part of that conversation to make sure that they're not lost in the bigger movement?
I mean, you just make sure that you target and include Black trans people. I think that's like the simplest answer. I think that, this idea that there's a separation between racial justice and transness and trans issues is just a false one. We know that Black trans people and Black trans women were instrumental in the founding of the overall LGBTQ movement. We would not have one unless those first, all of those nights at Stonewall took place for those first two, which were led by Black and brown trans women. In 1973, those very women were pushed out of the mainstream gay rights movement and ever since have lagged behind. And so the way to correct that injustice is to begin to include Black trans people and realize that there are Black trans people who are entrepreneurs, who want to find business, who need to have businesses, but have a whole host of challenges when it comes to getting access to credit, having had non-traditional jobs, having lived in many different types of places. And so it's also about what your bank is willing to do to be able to help people with non-traditional credit backgrounds who are still worthy of a credit risk. And I think that it is about putting that call out and saying we are a place and a bank that wants to reach out to Black trans entrepreneurs. It means as well reaching out to the Black trans community, of which there are many. A good run of show list is that I recently organized a group of Black trans people in the Black trans community to put pressure on BET to change the way in which they operate culturally as a company when it comes to trans issues. There are 51 signatures of that to that. All of those people are leaders in our community from a variety of different backgrounds. So that's a really good list of who's doing what and where. You can find that open letter on the internet. It's super easy. So I think that it's also about making sure that your bank is centering Black trans people, reaching out to Black trans people, understanding that it will be more nonlinear than is the case for your other probably outreach, but that we exist, we're here, we're diverse. There are people that are starting businesses, want to start businesses, as I said, are worthy of a credit risk, and that should just be a goal.
Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. And I think Jen has actually put the link to that open letter in the chat. So please do check that out and make sure that you engage with many of the 51 signatories on the list. Does anybody else have a question? I can see lots of agreement. Yes, love the Black trans customer inclusion point. Many people, I'm really hoping that all of you start working with Imara after this. I think it's very necessary, and having the connection across community. That's why we create these spaces and collaborate. Someone's just said, wouldn't it be great for banks to create financial wellness training that is freely presented to Black trans people and use that training to justify the risk of people's backgrounds?
Yep.
Hello, Chloe, can you hear me?
Hi, Kim, great that you can be with us. Fantastic.
Gosh, I had a little bit of trouble logging on, but I'm here now. Hello, everybody.
Fantastic, great that you can be here with us. So we've got another comment from Rodolfo. In Argentina, it was recently approved that a percentage of government offices staff should be destined to the trans community. However, in the private space, we see that corporations set requirements such as top universities, bilingual, or many years of work experience that in the end exclude an important part of the trans community locally. What are your thoughts on bills, laws that ensure positions for transgender individuals in companies?
Can you repeat the last part? I'm sorry.
That was a big question.
What are your thoughts on bills or laws that ensure positions for transgender individuals in companies? So making it a legal requirement.
That make it a legal requirement. Well, I mean, I think that, you know, we fundamentally, and hi Kim, good to see you.
Hello, Imara.
I think that like it's really important, first of all, that I think it's different in the UK. I believe that you're a part of the UN human rights structure, which I think will hold after Brexit. So I think a lot of things, Kim can speak to this, are covered by that. But in the United States, you know, we actually need legal inclusion in the actual laws. So trans people and LGBTQ people overall just over the summer, 2 months ago, gained the right to have a job. I mean, that just happened 2 months ago, the legal right to have a job, i.e. Meaning that a job couldn't fire you just for being trans or LGBTQ. That just happened 2 months ago. And so I think that needs to happen across the board. There's still battles over trans protections and inclusion in education. There are still battles over inclusion in healthcare. All of these things on an equal footing are not guaranteed for trans people. So we need a fundamental change in the laws. And then a part of that, I do believe, I actually wrote a piece last month that details an economic agenda for trans people and for Black trans women in particular. And I do believe that we need to be more proactive. I do think that we need to have universal basic income. I do think that we need to have affirmative action for Black trans people, which I know is controversial, but affirmative action works. Which is one of the reasons why it's so controversial. It actually is an effective tool for recruiting and retaining and promoting people of different backgrounds. And so I think that we do need all of those things, but at a minimum, we need basic protections in the law, which are not guaranteed right now.
Hi, this is Heidi. I just wanted to echo that point. I do a lot of hey, Chloe. I do a lot of cross-sectional work in terms of like LGBTQ issues, education policy, racial equity issues. So this is at the nexus of a lot of things that I do. And just to echo what Imara said, the legislation is key, right? Because every time we have a new administration, like you see what's happening right now with HUD in terms of protection for housing, for trans folks experiencing homelessness, like they are currently fighting that regulatorily. And that's a problem because we don't have anything legislatively to combat that. So there's this rub in between these issues in terms of where the courts have made decisions, where they've made decisions on the Hill, but where there's still that executive power. So I think legislation needs to be our next frontier so that we can look back and have our great like Voting Rights Act or what have Civil Rights Act around these issues to ensure this for generations to come. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Heidi. It's great to see you. Maddie, ask away.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Well, first of all, I'm just like, Imara, I love you. I follow you on social media. So when I saw that you were coming to Out Equal, I was like, I have to be there. So forgive me if I'm a little nervous. But so one thing that, and I loved the pre-recorded conversation. A lot of the points are definitely points I've seen you share and talk to before. And I think that it's great to see them reiterated here because they can never be reiterated enough, especially in terms of allyship. And personally, I just came out as trans non-binary at work. And I know part of what you touched on in the pre-recorded video is how a lot of the times the biggest obstacles we face are within our own community. It's something that I've kind of noticed as I've come out and have been trying to, you know, with my visibility, be like, these are issues that are important, they're urgent. They're kind of a pushback, I guess, in terms of we have and within the community saying like, we have our own thing going on, like what, we don't have time or the bandwidth to talk about trans people. How would you, or do you have any suggestions on how to combat that in a kind way and kind of emphasize the urgency of these conversations within the community itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, well, first of all, congratulations. Thank you for following me. I appreciate that. Congratulations on coming out as trans and non-binary at work. I know that we all congratulate you in that understanding that that is not an easy thing nor an easy journey. So congratulations. It's not said enough when people are able to fully be themselves. So that's the first thing that I would say to you. The second thing that I would say is, you know, the reason why you should care about trans issues is solely out of self-interest. I don't think that, and if people don't get this, then I don't know what to say. And why is it in your self-interest to care about trans issues? Because trans issues are always just the entry point to a larger rollback of rights within the LGBTQ community. And we've seen that over the last 4 years. I specifically remember in 2016 when Donald Trump was elected, I was really concerned, and a friend of mine who you know, was a senior executive at an ad agency at the time, who's white and gay, said to me, well, you know, I understand the trepidation within the trans community, but, you know, I don't believe that Donald Trump will come after gays because we're just too much a part of society, right? We are just integrated in society. We can get married. We contribute a lot to political campaigns. That's just not gonna happen. And that was true for the first 3 years. And in the last year, we saw the beginning of the rollback of rights against gay people, where for one, the administration was arguing in front of the Supreme Court that my friend should have been able to be fired from his job solely because he was gay. Mm. The second thing is that we also know that they've also rolled back protections, employment discrimination protections for gays who work for the federal government, for all federal contractors, just like Lockheed Martin. If Lockheed Martin wanted to fire one of their employees before 2 months ago, the Trump administration would not have come after them because they've rolled back those protections for these organizations. So anyone who thinks as a part of the queer community, LGBTQ community, that they're gonna start with trans rights and are gonna stop there, that's crazy. And so, you know, it's that old phrase, like you want to fight them over there before you have to fight them in front of your house. So I think that as a community, we ought to be engaged on these issues and we ought to be pushing back. And I think that you should tell people that and you should just lay out the facts for them. And if they don't understand what is happening to them, if they don't understand what is happening in front of their very eyes, then I literally don't know what to say to them. And honestly, it's not you don't have to save everybody. You have to just worry about saving yourself ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Welcome to be a part of a marginalized community now. It's all about fighting when you're with a marginalized community. So good luck.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got, I think
That's
we've
right.
got about 4 or 5 minutes left before we kind of have to sign off. It's been really great. I think everyone, oh gosh, sorry, I'm talking at the same time. So I know Jay Sloan said, I'd like to say to cisgendered colleagues that the corporate policy statement that protects discrimination based on gender expression actually protects all employees, just not just transgendered employees. Steffi says, we see also in the UK that the government hesitated to implement reforms to the Gender Recognition Act. How can we influence this? Sign the petition, keep sharing the petition, sign the petition, take it to your workforce, get your workforce to sign the petition. Francis, late to the party on this, but Dell Technologies also has an established transgender task force. So if you'd like to be looped in with us for, or like to be looped in for us with anything, please feel free. And they've left their email. We could talk for a very long time. And I would love to talk for a very long time. I know there are a few more sessions. I guess it's been so nice to be able to see everyone, to hear everyone in ways where we can't all be together, but we're all together in Summit. I guess I want to leave the last couple of minutes to you, Kim, and to you, Imara. You know, when we had this conversation, not too long ago, but still long enough ago that time has moved on, and the impact is still very real and very, very raw. It is never more important than now, and we keep saying this, to, you know, protect trans lives, and in particular Black trans women. So I want to leave the floor to you to put a call out. You know, you're talking to professionals, employees, you're talking to business leaders here in this room. Really now, what is it that needs to be done as we move forward, as a challenge and a call out for everyone to move forward from today, that makes them as a collective better allies to the trans community?
I'm going to leave this to Kim because I've spoken for the
No, it's
last,
okay, Amara.
I've spoken for the last,
no, Amara, listen,
minutes.
Amara, it's totally fine. I'll say something really quick and then you can finish. I love listening to you myself, so it's totally fine. You know, I would say it's about educating yourselves, really taking time to educate yourself. And, you know, it's also, I think it's important to know that the trans community are just people. We're just everyday people. And, you know, if I just finished working on a show, and I was working with all cis people. Everyone was really nice, but you know, it's still a bit nerve-wracking for myself to be around cis people who are not really educated about my community. But that goes for saying, you know, about other parts of marginalized communities, disabled communities, Chinese communities, whatever communities. It's about educating yourself and just making all of us, every marginalized community, feel welcome. So I'll leave it up to you, Imara.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. I mean, so Ms. Kim just did the human decency piece of this. Like, you should just care about, no, it's true, right? Like, you should care about us because you want to be a decent human being, and we're people, and you should connect to other people, which actually is true. I think I'm going to speak on the more sort of hard-headed piece of this.
Yes, girl.
which is they're both important. Which is that the younger, if your company wants to have a future, they have to care about trans issues. The younger you go in terms of customers and audiences, the more likely those audiences and customers care about trans people, care about trans issues, and are likely trans themselves and have trans are trans friends or trans themselves. You know, just in the middle of an epidemic here, we had 20,000 people rally in New York for trans rights. And I can assure you that the majority of people in that crowd were not trans. Probably 80% weren't. Which means that if your company is going to have a future, then you have to care about trans issues. You got to learn about trans people. You got to hire trans people. You have to make sure that your services, your products, anything that you offer as a company are trans friendly, and that people who aren't trans know that you're doing that as well, because it's gonna be a part of the ways in which they make decisions about what to patronize and what not to patronize. So I think that that would essentially be my argument to people. And I understand that I'm gonna be really mean here. I understand that a lot of CEOs at the golf club don't think it's an issue because there are no trans people in their circle. But I would work to underscore that you can assure them that beyond that, particularly the younger that you go, that that trans issues are going to be really salient to whatever future you have. And we're talking like in the next 5 years, right? We're not talking 15, 20, 25 year time horizons.
Yeah.
So 3 years. So I think
5 years, I was like 2 to 3.
That's right. I mean, and also like even on these, I mean, another just indication is that a lot of the hit shows that you see on television that are really popular, such as Euphoria, have trans characters, which mean, again, that trans is mainstream for large parts of people and populations in the United States, particularly ones that are younger. And so get into it.
And that was the last word.
Do you know, I always say, like, what the trans community are going through now is what the Black community went through in the 60s. I always like parallel what happened in the 60s. Just a thought. Something to think about.
No, okay. I don't want to get in trouble because we're going over our time, but I can see lots of people are sharing their contact details. Like I said, please download the speaker slide so you can find all the information, links to some of Ms. Kim's work, Imara's work, all of their connections. This has been such an amazing panel session. Thank you so much for all taking part with us. We're so delighted at LBTQ Women we could facilitate this conversation. Please make sure you join our out directory. The link is on there, so if I don't see your faces, and I've seen your pictures now, so I know what you look like. So please do make sure that you all join and become part of that. And I've just seen from Maddie, there is a survey for this session, so please do help out Out and Equal and support that. But this has been really great. It's been so nice to be able to see you again and to have this time together. I'm so glad that everyone really kind of vibed off the session. Like I said, I was just question marks, so it was great to be able to hear you both in the space. So please do have a lovely evening. I know there are so many more sessions to go. Hopefully I see you at the night in. We've got our orders, we've got our cocktail to make. If you didn't manage to see Chanel earlier, oh my God, she got my life together on that session. She's amazing. Foudre vodka. I'm not a vodka drinker, but we all need to now invest in Black lesbian owned vodka company, Foudre vodka. So that's all we got to do. But I hope to see you at the night in. I know Mary Lambert's going to be singing again for us as well. So please do check that out. Take care. Happy Summit. See you all soon.
Thank you, Chloe, Mari, and Kim.
Bye, Imara. Love you.
Imara, lots of love. Bye, Kim.
Bye.
And reach out to us.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Connect. All of you.
Speak to you soon, Imara.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Well, I finally got on.
Well done.
I didn't have the